So now we're going to move on to the portion where we discuss how to run the software for the DSC instrument. So first things first, we're going to go into the summary tab there and select our mode. That mode is usually just going to be set to standard for our purposes of just running a sample. Next, you're going to choose a different test for whatever you want to do for your particular experiment. In general, people tend to use heat, cool, heat, which will heat your sample, then cool it down, and then heat it again. Next, you're going to name your sample. For our purposes, we only named it sample 1 for this training video. Then you're going to choose your pan type. Again, since we used that T0 hermetic, we selected T0 aluminum hermetic. Now you enter in your masses for your particular samples. So for our sample number 1, we enter in that mass of the sample alone. So you take the difference of those samples that we had taken on one of the prior videos of the sample plus the pan and lid, and then the empty pan and lid. Now this next mass is that empty pan and lid of that sample. The third and last mass is our sample reference. That is our reference pan and lid mass. And then lastly, we are going to enter in those numbers in the autosampler. So number 3 for our sample and number 1 for the reference. We don't need to make any additional comments, and then now you choose a destination for your file to save to. You can do that by just saving it somewhere on the desktop under these directories. You can go to DSC, and then for us it is Dr. Yu's lab, so we go to the U folder, but you can choose whatever advisor folder you're using and then save it to your name generally, but we have just saved it to a folder titled sample, and then saved it as the same name that we had chosen before and just hit save. So now when we finish this run, it will go ahead and save directly there where we can collect this data and export it. So now we move to the procedure tab, again keeping that heat, cool, heat test. And here we are able to change the temperatures of everything. So we can alter what temperature our experiment will start at. We can alter the heating rate as well as the cooling rate. And we can change the upper temperature that we will reach as well as the lower temperature that we'll reach. And these numbers you can determine based on your particular samples that you're using and how high or how low you want them to be exposed to. As soon as you're done with that, you can just move to the last tab, which is the notes section, and you're going to enter your name in the operator tab. You don't need to put anything in extended text, and then everything else, the default is perfectly fine. You can go ahead and hit the arrow right there next to your run to start it. However, if you want to add any additional samples, you're going to hit that button, as we just did, to add more runs. And in doing that, you can add multiple samples to one file. So then, again, we hit that start button on the left there, and the instrument will go ahead and use the autosampler to grab that first sample, place it in our sample stage, and start that first test that we had given it. In doing that, if you go down to the bottom right here, you can see our graph as it appears in real time. So first things first, now we're seeing our autosampler grab our sample and place it right into the sample stage. Now it adds both the reference pan and lid as well as your sample in there at the same time. Once it's done with this and it closes that lid back on, it'll start that data collection on that graph that I had previously shown. So now it's grabbing the reference pan and lid. And now you can see they're both in there very neatly. And the lid is going back on. And now we're able to see the experiment running as soon as the instrument is ready. And you can see it in real time, that curve going. That's our data collection happening as the temperature is increased or decreased accordingly, according to the test that we had chosen. So then one last thing to add before we end the video is if you go to the bottom left portion of the screen there, you can see how long this experiment will take you, and that will let you know exactly how much time you have until this is fully completed. So while this is running, you don't have to do anything because the autosampler will change samples as it needs to according to the runs that you've told it to do. So you can leave for however long it might take, come back when it's done, and collect your data.